Shot clock buzzer off a jump ball, but he really didn't need to because the clock resets with the change of possession. So, Perk, are you giving Smart a pass?
No, I'm not. Smart wasn't so smart on this particular play. And George, listen, we all had these brain fart moments. It happens. It happens.
It definitely
It
happened.
was online. I mean, shouldn't he get some credit for it being online?
Yeah, I'll give him some credit. You know, it was funny watching Kemba, though, trying to explain it to him, and he wasn't feeling it at the moment. Welcome to The Jump. I'm George Sedano, in for our fearless leader, Rachel Nichols, alongside New York Times bestseller and, of course, host of the Hoop Collective podcast, Brian Windhorst, as well as NBA champ Kendrick Perkins. Coming up later in the show, Lakers owner Jeannie Buss was asked by Stephen A. about the Nets adding Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, and she said, bring it on. But is it too soon to call the Nets and Lakers finals favorites? We'll discuss. But first, we begin with Steph Curry's return to action following a hard fall on his tailbone on March 17th. Curry scored 32 points, dished out 6 assists, and grabbed 5 rebounds in 30 minutes of action on Monday night in the Warriors' 116-102 win over the Bulls, which snapped a 4-game losing streak for the Warriors. After the game, Steph talked about playing through lingering pain.
Just dealing with pain, that's it. Try to turn it off and just focus on the game. The charge I took was it was a good play, and I try to brace myself. That's the one that you don't want to second guess moves or decisions that, on either end of the floor because you're trying to avoid pain. You kind of just have to deal with it. So, because it's such an unorthodox type of fall, landing on that stair like I did, that probably not anytime soon, but I should be, good to keep playing.
Well, Steph, if it's any consolation, I know what you're going through. Here's my offer for you. Get yourself one of these. It worked for me when I busted up my tailbone, so there you go. Trust me on this one. All right, Golden State is currently in the 10th spot in the Western Conference, which would put them in the play-in game. So, Perk, what's a realistic ceiling for Steph and the Warriors this season?
Well, first of all, look, the Warriors are in a bad spot right now. If you got to get a hobbling, an injured Steph Curry to come in just to get a win, you got a problem. But I got them being in the play-in. They will make the play-in tournament, that 7 through 10 seed, long as Steph Curry is on the floor. And by the way, the only other bright spot that I've seen them have is Andrew Wiggins. He has stepped up tremendously. He now has the pressure. He don't have the pressure of living up to the number 1 pick. So I see them getting into the play-in tournament. I don't see them cracking up nowhere past that 7th spot. They won't get to the 6th spot, but they will be in the play-in as long as Steph Curry is on the floor.
Yeah, so the bad news for them is that with this losing streak with Steph out, they fell down to 10th. The good news is they actually have the 4th easiest schedule the rest of the way. Not that anything in the West is that easy, but they will have a window if they can get hot. But I think Perk is probably right. Their situation is probably to be in the play-in and hope that the Lakers, who are holding on to 4th place, they've gotten a couple of wins without LeBron and AD. If they don't back into the play-in tournament, they don't have to see them in that play-in tournament. I think they'll have a better shot at winning their way into the playoffs, and then you have a puncher's chance against one of those teams. But their margin for error is really small. If Steph has another nagging injury that causes them to miss 3 or 4 games, that could be the difference between them making the play-in and not.
Well, Brian, and I'll start with you. I mean, if you really look at those top 6 seeds in the Western Conference, I don't think you can say, even if they had 100% health the whole season, that they're better than any of those 6 teams, right?
Well, I think if they could somehow get to 6th place and they got a team like the Suns in the first round that doesn't have that much experience. I mean, the Suns would still be favored, but you could see Curry going crazy. But again, I'm going on and on about scenarios. They've started playing their young players more, and that's an indication that deep down they know that this is a developmental season. They're going to try to straddle the line and make the playoffs and also develop their young players. But typically when that happens, it means the team knows it's not really that competitive at the highest level.
Right. And here it is, George and Brian. This is in a nutshell. Their ceiling is first round max, okay? They can make the play-in, get into the playoffs, and then they going home first round. That's the Warriors ceiling this season, period.
All right, fair enough. Speaking of Steph, Brian, you've got the NBA aggregators all in a tizzy today. because you dropped some knowledge on your latest Hoop Collective podcast about LeBron potentially recruiting Steph. So fill us in here.
I don't think I dropped any knowledge, actually. LeBron was tweeting about it during the All-Star weekend. He tweeted about how much he enjoyed being a teammate of Steph Curry's for the first time, which he did by selecting him on his team. And the All-Star weekend has become the premium recruiting spot for the NBA these days. And the reason this is relevant is because Steph has a contract extension this summer. He has 1 year left on his contract. And guys, listen, if he signs that extension, he could sign up to $200 million in more money, then this is a moot point. And that's probably what's going to happen. If he doesn't take a max contract, maybe he takes a little bit less so that the Warriors have some maneuverability going forward, but he can sign all the way up to age 38 this summer. But LeBron James, one of his greatest attributes in his whole sphere is awareness. And I promise you, LeBron is very aware that Steph has to make a decision this summer, whether he's going to be a Warrior for life or not. And he just wanted to let him know what it was like to play on his team, which he openly, he selected him on his roster, had fun with him on the court, and then tweeted about how much fun it was. I don't think this is a secret at all. I'm just pointing it out to people in case they weren't paying attention.
No, it's no secret. And they were having a great time. We saw the chest bumping, the high five, and the praising. It was a joy in that All-Star game. And you know what? To all the Warriors fans, if Steph Curry do decide to leave, y'all can't be mad at him. He done gave y'all franchise everything in the world and more, okay? But I'm just thinking of the fact that I could possibly see, the world could see LeBron James, one of the greatest of all time, the GOAT in my eyes, Steph Curry, the greatest shooter of all time, top 5 point guard of all time, along with a generation of Anthony Talent and Anthony Davis pairing up in Los Angeles together. That would be must-see TV. And look, hey, I'm not knocking Bron for doing it. Not what I'm seeing going down in Brooklyn right now. I mean, hey, you know, this part of it. Stack the team up, stack the deck.
Well, let me start with you, Perk, about that. I think one of the greatest things about LeBron, beyond obviously how great he is on the floor, right, is that he's willing to put bygones aside, right? Like, they were fierce competitors against each other. You know, you were in those battles as well. And he doesn't care about that stuff. When it comes to business, he wants to put the best team around him possible. And that's actually really smart.
Absolutely, George. And look, one word that don't match LeBron James is the word sensitive, right? He takes a lot of heat. He never lashes out. He never gives any type of backlash to media or says anything that anybody have negative to say about him. He keeps pushing forward. So, you know, at the end of the day, hey, look, Bron, do you, right? We all know that him and Steph Curry had the battles, but I do remember when Steph Curry was in college, LeBron James was going to his college games and watching them play. So LeBron knows how to turn that on and off switch on to separate the two, between the lines and outside the lines.
Let me tell you something about LeBron. Unless you're part of a very small select group of players, and Perk is in that group, but it's a small select group of players, you are either with LeBron or you're against him. If you're with him today, you're his buddy. If you're against him tomorrow, you're his enemy. Very, very few escape that sphere. Perk is a guy he always liked, but you don't want to know why? Because he played with Perk when he was in high school, okay? He goes all the way back to a teenager with Perk. It's a very small number. So yeah, he was a fierce rival of Steph Curry 4 or 5 years ago for 5 years. If there's a window of an opportunity, 1%, 2%, that he can get Steph Curry on the Lakers, he's going to be his buddy. And if he re-signs with the Warriors and it closes the door, he'll be his enemy again. Just like a couple of years ago when Kyrie Irving was going to be a free agent, he made up with him for like 3-4 months. Then Kyrie goes, now he's his enemy again. This is how LeBron rolls. He's been rolling like this for 15 or 18 years, and it will not change. And this is just another file. He's going to try to get Steph. If he doesn't get him, he'll try to get somebody else.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let me ask you about the Lakers' current point guard situation with Dennis Schroeder. The Lakers allegedly offered him a deal, Brian, and he turned that deal down. What do we know about that situation?
Yeah, so Schroeder is limited to how much he can extend for. He can extend between now and the end of the year for 4 years and $84 million. That is about what Fred VanVleet signed for with the Toronto Raptors last year. So it's actually not a bad comparison. But the discussions so far with Schroeder and the Lakers on that extension have not borne fruit. And the expectation with executives in the league is it's because Schroeder would like more than that $84 million that the Lakers can offer. It's not that they don't think he's worth more than that. They just can't offer more than that. So there's going to be what it looks like right now. Things could change hour to hour, but it looks like Schroeder is probably headed for unrestricted free agency. The Lakers knew that and had talks about trading for Kyle Lowry. Whether or not that makes a difference, we'll see. But those things are facts. They had discussions about Kyle Lowry, and they haven't extended Schroeder, and it bears watching.
Well, you know, one thing I hate to comment on is guys, you know, getting their lettuce and getting their money, right? Because this is what you come to the NBA for first and foremost. You have the love for the game, but it's a job, and you come to get as much money and the top dollar that you possibly can before your career is over with. But I will say this, and I wish Richard Jefferson was on here right now, because this goes back to my point of saying this is why the Lakers, in my opinion, should have went all in for Kyle Lowry. Like, you got to go grab him, especially when Dennis Schroeder has declined and turned down contract extensions. Like I said, he was saying Kyle Lowry was a rental, but this is a rental right here as well. And I just don't know. I mean, you know, he's going to have to live up to it. And another point, when a guy's playing for a contract, it can either go good or go bad. It's no in between, because a guy has that in the back of his mind. And sometimes it can hinder and hurt the team because you're trying to win a championship, but also this guy's fighting for a contract, another contract, and trying to make sure that he keeps up and his numbers are up to par individually so he could get the top dollar. So this is why I would have made the trade and got Kyle Lowry.
And this is why you were right and Richard is always wrong, Perk. That's the reality of it. And I know if you're watching Richard somewhere in your sweatpants, maybe you're still wearing a jacket because you're just weird like that. Perk was right, you were wrong. All right, well, coming up next, John Morant, speaking of point guards, pulled off an incredible layup last night, and it got us wondering, is his layup catalog better than his dunk catalog? We'll get to that, but first,